welcome to another video in our series about being a biblical wife and what it means to be a biblical wife according to God's word, because that is what we're going to dive into today. So today we're going to dive into what it means to be a provider of the food. Now, if you haven't seen the other videos in this series, I will put the playlist up here because we have done some amazing videos already. We talked about submission and what it really means to be submissive, which is not what you think it is, being a keeper of the home and all the good things. So if you haven't seen any of those videos, I would highly suggest going to that playlist. Now, if you don't know me yet, my name is Stephanie. I'm a mom to 3 kids. And I love being a homemaker. I love marriage. I love the home in general. I love everything that has to do with home. So that is what I share about on this channel. So if you love content like that, feel free to subscribe and to join me over here in all the good videos that are coming. Anyway, today I wanted to dive into God's word, which is my favorite thing to do. And I wanted to talk about one of the roles of a biblical wife. And as you can see by the title, that is being a provider of the food. And that means just being the one that takes care of the food in the house. So before we start, let's read Proverbs 31, verse 14 and 15, because that is one of the verses that I just wanted to talk about because that is about being a provider of the food. So anyway, Proverbs 31, verse 14 says, "She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still dark and provides food for her family and portions for her servant girls." I really wanted to focus on these 2 verses because it really means that you are the one that is going to provide for the food. That can look like you are the one that is going to do the groceries. You're the one that is going to make the grocery list, that is going to keep track of what is in your pantry, what's in your freezers, what's in your fridge, all those things. That is something that a biblical woman does. And another thing that is really part of being a biblical woman is making sure that there is just always food for your family to eat. And what that looks like is completely different for everybody, and it also depends on your budget, because you can have a completely stocked up fridge, or you can just make sure that there's always a sandwich and peanut butter. It really depends on your budget, and there's nothing wrong with either of those, but it just means that you as a woman are the one that is going to provide for the food. And that also means that most of the time, the woman is the one that is going to cook. It doesn't mean that a husband cannot get the groceries. It doesn't mean that your husband can't cook. It doesn't mean that he can't keep track of all the things that are in the fridge. It's not what it says. It just means that you as a wife are the one responsible for that role, and however you're going to divide it is up to you as a family and as a couple. I wanted to really emphasize more of the things that it means and that it doesn't mean, and some ways we can improve our role as a provider of the food. Now, one thing that I really wanted to mention here is that your number one role as the provider of the food is just to make sure that everybody in the house has enough food to eat within your budget. So that is basically what this role entails. Because it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to have all the elaborate things. It just means that everybody needs to have food. And you're the one that is going to make sure that that is available in the house. Now, there are a few ways that you can grow in this role as a provider of the food, and I wanted to share a couple of those with you. And now the first one of that is to meal plan. And how you meal plan is really up to you. There are hundreds of ways that you can meal plan, but it really depends on your family structure, how you're going to go about it. But I really do believe that meal planning is going to help you to eat nutritious meals, to just have food around the house all the time, and to not waste your food, because that is also one of your roles as a provider of the food, is also to make sure that you don't waste as much, and to also make sure that you can always cook something from home, that you can always provide for food for your family. Now, the way that I love to plan our meals is, first thing I do is I go through our fridge, our freezer, and our pantry. I make sure that I know what is in there and see, what do I have to use up? What are some things that I really need to eat this week that are gonna expire? Or how can I save money this week because I already have carrots? So how can I use carrots this week in order to use those ingredients? Those are things that I really like to do first. So first thing is I just make sure that I know what is in the house already. From there, I make a list. With those ingredients, I try to come up with a meal plan. And sometimes that means that I have 20 items that I need to use, and that means I have my entire week filled out. And sometimes it means that I only have ground beef in my freezer, and that is the only thing I have to work with. So it really depends on the weeks, but I really love to have that inventory of what I have in my home already. And from there, I can create a meal plan. So step 2 in meal planning for me is going through all the stores that I like to go to and just look at what is on sale, combining those ingredients with what I have on hand and turning that into meals. Now, the only thing that I do is plan out our dinners. My breakfasts are typically just things that we rotate. So we always have oatmeal, we always have granola, we always have sandwiches in the house. So we just choose whatever we want on that day. So I don't really plan out our breakfasts. And our lunches are basically sandwiches or leftovers. And that is what we choose from. So I don't necessarily plan out my breakfast and my lunch. So with that information, I just go to the stores and see what do they have on sale and what can I make with the sale items, with what I have in my house, and how can I get a meal together with those things. So that is what I do first. And then from there, when I have that figured out, when I have all my meals planned out for the week, so all my dinners planned out for the week, then I will add in all the rest of the items that I need. So in order to make sure we always can eat our breakfast, we need to have milk and we need to have yogurt. So those are things that are always on my list. So from there, I just fill up the list with bread, yogurt, milk, you know the drill, all the basic stuff. And then I go grocery shopping. So that is basically my step-by-step system, so to speak, on how I make sure that I have a meal plan, that I always have food around the house, and to stay within budget. Because one of your roles as a wife is actually to make sure that your budget stays on track. Now, I'm not going to talk about budgeting in itself in this video, but I really do believe that that is part of our role as a wife, and it is something that, especially with the food, is something that we really need to stay on track of, because we can spend so much money in a grocery store, especially with prices these days. You can spend way more than you should or than you want to spend. So it is really important to make sure that you have a list, you have a meal plan, and that you know what your budget is. So set a budget for your family and stick to it. Now, the way that I actually decided on the budget for a family is, number one, you look at what your income is, obviously, but also I like to keep the rule that Jordan Page actually mentions from funcheaporfree.com. And she mentioned that $100 per person per month is a general guideline. And that is what I use basically. So we live in the Netherlands. So for us, it's 100 euros, sort of. So we do 100 euros per person per month. So that means we have 500 euros per month to spend as a family. So that is 125 a week. And with that, we can create great meals. And it's not that hard to live on the 125. And what I like to do every once and again is to limit myself to $100 or 100 euros a week and save the 25. So that is what I like to do. But I always make sure to at least stick within my 125 euro budget. So that is just a good tip for you. Now, if you want to know more about it, I will link a blog post about her food budget and how she calculates it in the description below if I can find it. So you can actually read it for yourself. But the general rule is $100 a person a month, which is actually a really good rule to stick to. Now, another thing that is really going to help you to be a good provider of the food is to learn how to cook from home. Because cooking from home is going to save you, first off, so much money. You can reduce your budget by a ton, but it's also going to help you to provide good food. Because if you purchase something that is a convenience item from the grocery store, it is always less nutritious than when you do it at home. So one of the things that I like to do is I learn how to make mashed potatoes myself, or I learn how to make my own pancake mix instead of purchasing a pancake mix from the store, because there's always added ingredients to that. And a lot of times it's more sugar and more salt and a lot of artificial stuff that I don't want in my family. So those are things that you can learn. Cook meals from home. And one thing that I've actually loved to do when we first got married is to just have one new meal every single week, or if that is too much for you, do it every single month and focus on that. So for example, learn how to make oatmeal from home. Do it every single day. Find some good varieties that you like. For example, I know a lot of people like to make oatmeal with water. We love to do it 50-50, so water and milk. Learn what your family loves. Try some new things, try some new ingredients. Those are good skills to learn. So learn what your family is gonna enjoy and make more meals from home. That is basically what I'm saying, because making meals from home is really gonna benefit your budget and your nutritional value. Because like I said, food from the store is not that great nutrition wise, but it's also not good for your budget. So cook your meals from home, and an added bonus to that is that you can actually teach your children to cook food from home. Because what I love to do is when I cook meals, I let my children help me. So I let them cut an onion, or I let them stir the pot, or I teach them how much pasta we need per person, things like that. It's really fun for me to bring in the kids, and yes, it's going to take you a little longer, but it's going to help them to learn new skills and to actually be able to provide for the food themselves when they grow older. And that is one other point that I wanted to make, is to learn new skills. So you can teach them along with your children, but it's also important to actually learn new skills yourself. And it doesn't mean that you have to bake sourdough bread. Of course, you can learn that if that is what you want, but some things that are just going to be very beneficial to you is, how do you cook rice? I mean, look up YouTube videos and search how you cook the perfect rice. Search how to make a good lasagna. Search how to make the perfect oatmeal. That is a new skill that you can add to what you can already do, and it's going to make it so much more fun to cook, because there's so many new ways that you can use an ingredient. Like pasta, you can turn it into an oven pasta. You can turn it into a creamy sauce. You can have a tomato base. You can have a pesto base. There's so much variety that you can have with just the pasta. So it's really good to teach yourself those new varieties so you can have variety in your food. And that really doesn't have to cost you that much money. It's just a new way of preparing the same thing. So gain new skills and focus on that. And if you love to make bread, or if you want to learn how to cook, or you want to learn how to bake, by all means, go for the sourdough bread. But it's not that being a provider of the food means that you have to bake sourdough bread, because that is something that you see all the time on social media, but it doesn't mean that that is going to make you a good homemaker. Being a good homemaker is what is in your heart and is the effort that you put into it. And it's not necessarily if you can bake sourdough bread or not. So make sure you don't focus too much on the end result. Focus on what is your heart behind it, and why am I doing this? And if that is because you just want to provide the best food for your family within your budget, your heart behind it is what counts. And if that is the best you can do, then that is perfect. So focus on the skill, not necessarily only the end result. And yes, it's important to have great nutritional foods, but I'm also aware of the fact that a lot of people online make it seem like you need to have the best, perfect, healthy dinners every single day. And for me, I know that a lot of times that was just not possible for us. We did not have the budget to cook the most nutritious meals every single day. So sometimes we would eat pancakes, and there's nothing wrong with that. The most important thing is that you feed your family and you do the best that you can do within your budget. And if you can do better, then by all means do better. And what I love to do is, for example, pancakes, if that was going to be our dinner, it's not the most healthy version to have for dinner. So what I like to do is I would steam some veggies with it, for example, to add some nutritional value. So try to work within your budget. But the most important thing that you have to do as a mom or as a biblical wife is just provide for the food the best way you can. So don't get caught up in having to learn sourdough bread, or having to have the most amazing elaborate dinners, or having a big chunk of protein. Feed your family. That is the most important thing first. And whatever you can make possible within your budget, go for that. So that is something that I really wanted to add as well, because I know that a lot of times when I watch videos like this, or when I watch people cooking meals, I would always feel so bad because I thought, okay, this looks really good. I would watch videos like this and I would think, okay, I can't bake sourdough bread and I don't have the budget to add that much meat, or I don't have the budget to add in that special ingredient, for example. And you know what? It doesn't have to be that way. God doesn't say in his word that we need to create the most amazing dinners. He just says that we need to provide for the food and that we create portions for our family. And that is what is the most important part. At the end of the day, if it's not within your budget, then please don't go into debt because you need to have the organic ground beef. If that is not within your budget, then go with the regular ground beef. There's nothing wrong with it. And I really wanted to mention that as well, because being a provider of the food doesn't mean that you have to buy everything organic and that you have to buy organic beef from whatever super awesome farm that you can find. Yes, it's amazing if you can do that, and if that is within your budget, but if it's not, that's okay. I just really wanted to mention that because I don't want you to feel like you have to purchase everything organic or anything. So yeah, anyway, I really hope that that was helpful to you. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel, and I would love to see you in my next video.